Hi, everyone. So I wanted to take a moment to send you a quick video about the resources that I have for you this week for your students that are in VPK or preschool aged classrooms. I have attached to this message two handouts, a list of 10 online resources that may give you some options for your child while they're home. Also on that particular handout, it also gives you the Hillsborough County, state of Florida benchmarks for the area of literacy and language, one being the early reading skills, and the second benchmark being alphabetic and print knowledge. So when you look through those two benchmarks, it's going to spell out, starting at benchmark A, being the first skill in the benchmark, and progress down through the letters of the alphabet to the more advanced skills. When you read these, sometimes they're easy to read and sometimes they can be confusing. As always, send me a quick email and I will be more than happy to give you a phone call or respond to you by email, whatever's easiest to help answer your questions. Let us look at some of the information that is on the first handout. So under emergent reading, they are talking about skills specific to phonological awareness. Those skills are a bit hard for adults to understand how to present to children. Most of the time, they do not require anything visual. These are listening skills, auditory processing skills. So they require practice, they require focus. For the age group of older twos and young threes, phonological awareness really comes down to them hearing and understanding words. So they need to be able to differentiate between a spoken word and sounds. So they're learning when you do a rhyme, 1, 2, buckle my shoe, 3, 4, shut the door. They're learning that those are all individual words. And sometimes you will wait to have them fill in the word. Then after that, you move on to combining words to make compound words. So for a child to understand that if you take the word foot and then you add the word ball, you get a new word, a compound word, football. It's hard to do that visually because if I take a picture of a foot and I took a picture of a ball, if I put those two cards together, it really doesn't turn into a football. They have to know what a football is in order for it to make sense to them. It then breaks down even further so that they are taking out syllables. We do a syllable game with our pre-K kids. It might be something as simple as clapping out the syllables in your name, and we would go around the circle. So, we would say, let's go, Mary, or it might be Joshua, or, this type of thing. So you're kind of giving them that a word breaks down into syllables of sounds. And then even further, those syllables may break down into really small units of sound, which is the sound associated with the picture of a letter. Side note, teaching a child to read does not require that the child knows the names of all of the letters of the alphabet. Because when we read, we are really isolating the sounds that those letters are there to represent. I can read a word in Spanish because I know the sounds of all of the letters in the Spanish language. I can read a word, but may not know what it actually means, but I can sound it out. I can decode it. Children can do the same thing if they know the sounds that the letters represent. Letters don't make sounds. Letters don't make sounds. Letters are a picture of a sound. What I mean by that is there are sounds within our language, such as k, and the sound k is represented by two letter pictures, the letter picture C and the letter picture K. Same sound, two different pictures of letters. So as we teach children the sounds of a letter, we are teaching them the beginning skills for reading. When we teach children the name of the letter picture, that is actually the foundation for spelling. If I read a word, then I am going to be sounding out the sounds of those letter pictures, putting them together, and coming up with the sound of a word. If I know the vocabulary for that word and have had experience to know what that word is, then I can read the word and know that it is talking about a particular thing. If I decode k, a, t, and put those sounds together, I realize that says k, at, cat. If I know what a cat is, if I've ever seen a cat, then I know k, at, represented by the sound pictures, C-A-T, is the word for a cat. If you ask me, how do you spell cat? Then I have to be able to tell you the name of those sound pictures. We teach children to write the letters so that they can write down the word for a thought that they have, and someone else can read it and know what they were trying to say. But teaching them the name of the letter is not important to teach them to read. Teaching them the sounds that are represented by letters is what we need to do to teach them to read. So the second handout that I have included today is a resource that I sent out a few weeks ago. On this resource, I did talk to families about the areas of development that are most likely what your children might be working on based on their age. Every child can always continue to work on attention and focus. And one of the best ways for children to learn that is to have an uncluttered and quiet environment where they are given time and kind of expected to spend the time really focusing on something, whatever it is that they are working with or on. So it means that as parents, it's okay to let them be bored. Quiet time is really important for children's brain development. They really need to have those open, quiet moments where they can think, they're not highly stimulated, and they can sort of focus and calm their minds. I provided on that list 3 fairly simple phonological games that we play with the children that don't require any or very little in the way of resources to do. Okay, the first game is the sound game. So you would, for a child, say, I'm going to say a word. You listen to the word. You would say, car. Then you would say to them, what was my word? And they could respond, car. That's right. My word is car. What's the first sound you hear in the word car? And hopefully they will say k. You can break the word apart and really focus on that first sound. So you're trying to have them listen for each individual part of the word, the beginning sound, maybe just the ending sound. Sometimes it's the beginning sound and the rhyming part of the word. So if I say the word is bird, what is the beginning sound in the word bird? You want the child to be able to tell you that the beginning sound is B. What's the rhyming part of the word? And that's usually the part after the first sound. So erd. So it's erd. And that rhymes with another word. So you would be able to say, I got the word bird. What else rhymes with bird? So they would be trying to come up with other words, herd, or wow, I picked a hard word. You know, things that they could think of that would rhyme with that particular word that you're giving them. The second game that we play is the guess the word game. If you don't tell them what the word is first, you tell them all the sounds and you ask them to blend those together until they come up with the word that you were trying to say. So the example would be if you were doing k, ah, t, put those sounds together. What word am I saying? K, ah, t. You can speed it up for them. You can have them practice saying each sound with you and then start to put it together. If you find they're having difficulties with this, this is the visual cue that I give them. So I go k, at, k, at, k, at, k, at, cat. And just sort of like show them that you're starting with the word big and you're slowly squeezing it together until you get to cat. Okay. They will, once they get this, they will start turning it around on you and say, what's my word? And they may give you, some other word that they're interested in. Maybe it's, box. And you would have to figure out they were saying box. Another variation of the second game is that you can start with the sounds of a word. And the sounds are k, a, t. What word is that? They're going to eventually get to cat. Great. Now what if I take away the k and instead I put mm? What word is that? If they're able to take and delete the k sound at the beginning and add the sound at the beginning, then you're going to have a child who'll say at, mat. If they can't, you say, let's do it together. K, at. Let's change the k to at. What word is that? At, mat. So part of this game is learning to delete and put in a new sound so they can take away the k and change it with other, for sat, for fat, for hat, for bat. Think of all the words. You may want to write those down. You may want to sit there as a parent and do what we would call a word family. If you're going to work on AT as the ending two sounds, put as many of the initial sounds that you can think of that make a word that your child will be familiar with so that you're prepared. The same is true for the middle and the ending sound. So you could take at, remove a, and put in ah. Now we have k, ah, t, caught. The game can go for a while and it can be changed as your child is developing those skills. Okay, that's the second one. The third activity that I gave you on that handout has to do with rhyming. So as we talked about in the first game, where you could take away and substitute the beginning sound for a new sound, and then that would become a rhyming word. So if I have cat and I take away k and I add h and get hat, cat and hat rhyme because that ending portion of the word is the same. So this game is a similar way to do that, where you're kind of just having silly fun. So if you're singing along and you're singing a little nursery rhyme, and if you don't know those, boy, would I pick up a book or look online and refresh yourself. But if you're doing, hickory dickory dock, The mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck 1 and down he run. Hickory dickory dock. Okay. If the child learns the nursery rhyme and they're very familiar with it, then what will happen is you can change. You can change hickory dickory and not dock, but change it to something else with a different sound. So if you did that, your expectation would be that you want the child to come up with a word in the next sentence that rhymes with the one that you just changed. So in the handout, I'm going to read it, so I have to make this up. But if I said, hickory dickory flap, okay, the mouse ran up the, what did he run up? Hickory dickory flap. The mouse ran up the, and they're going to need to come up with a rhyming word. So they're going to have to take their understanding of clock and dock rhyme to come up with something that rhymes with flap that they can substitute, and it will become really silly. Do you remember those little pages? When I was younger, you used to fill them in. They were like Mad Libs, and it would just ask you to fill in the blank with a word. And when you read it, it was nonsensical, but it made you laugh. This is kind of the same kind of game. It's just letting them play with words and sounds, and they can create something new. Do be careful, because sometimes the word duck ends up being something you don't want them to say. So it just happens, and generally speaking, they don't know that they just made a rhyming word that isn't really socially acceptable. So, just be careful of those little things that can kind of happen by accident. These are 3 very simple at-home games that you can play. You can play them outside, you can play them anywhere, because there's really not any resources that you need to have to do them. They're all in here. It's all about listening and using the sounds, auditorily processing them, and coming back out in a different format or with the right answer. I hope that helps. I will attach these to the email so that you have them, and we'll be back next time with some more information. Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, and have a great day.